Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your day to join us this morning. I will now call this meeting of the Grant County Board of Commissioners to order. Please join us in the pledge.
Power tap there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
We have a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the Gila Regional Medical Center reports. Good morning, Ms. Arias and Mr. Stokes.
Good morning, Co-Chair and Commissioners. It's an honor being back here again another month. This is wonderful. Now we're down to ticking off months. Okay, I made it another month, everybody. This is a good thing. So I just want to give you a brief update on some things that are going on at Gila Regional, which we are very, very excited about. We have some new ad campaigns coming out. They are service line based and also promoting our physicians that are in Silver City. I think that you will really like them. We've got 2 billboards that are going up in Deming on I-10, going either way, going, I guess that would be north or south, but they're going to be both ways, and they should be coming out really soon. A concept that we have also presented to our board at our last board meeting is looking at the look of our hospital. And when I say that, I mean, you know, there are emblems that go out, and I think they were from a program that was many, many years ago that was developed, the red logo, and we see that our hospital is going through a new day, and thanks to all of the people in this community and to our commissioners, we have been allowed to say we're on a new road, and the old road is behind us, the new road is ahead of us, so what do we want that to look like? So we will be presenting to the public some new campaigns to look at what we want to look like in the future and to see what the response is from everyone. But it is a fresh campaign, it is a fresh look at our hospital, and I think as we go forward, we all want to know that we have a new design, not just in a logo, but a new design in how we function as an operation for this county. In saying that, we also are still heavily recruiting. We have recruited successfully a urologist who should be starting in the first part of the year. We're working with him and helping him with his application to the board because he is from Florida. So this is very, very good. We have a podiatrist that will be in town tomorrow, and we will be setting up his office next week, and he will be starting. He actually sent me a text message and saying that he really wanted to start seeing patients on Tuesday. I informed him that I would love that also, but we have to have certain things in order for you to be able to do that. But I love this. I love that energy. I love that commitment. He's the one that is moving down from North Dakota with his 5 children and his wife, who is a professional singer from Canada. So we're very, very much elated that he is joining us. We've also made another offer out to a surgeon. We have one that wants to come but has some family issues that they must resolve first, and we have another one that we put an offer out to, and we expect to have an answer by this afternoon. We have also looked at our CRNAs, who are RNs that work in anesthesia in our hospital. And we have one anesthesia that will be semi-retiring in the first of the year, so we're actively looking at recruiting to backfill that position so we don't have any decrease of services in our surgery department. We are, I want to draw you back to our commitment to not only the people in this county and Silver City, but also our commitment to you, our commissioners. When we went through this process, this year-long process, and at the end, you very graciously allowed us to start on our strategic plans. And even though the process put us back some months in that, we still are committed to that strategy. But in that strategy, there are decisions that have to be made, and one of those is how we recruit, how we expand our service lines, how we expand our services to this county and surrounding counties so that people do not have to leave Silver City to get the health care that they deserve. So you will see some expansions of our cardiac service lines, our pulmonary service lines, our physical therapy service lines, in which we are expanding into women's services and physical therapy. We are expanding into pulmonary rehab, cardiac rehab, and also we're doing lymphedema, which is a service that is promoted and completed in our physical therapy department. So all of those are excellent strategies to keep people in town. We're also looking at expanding diabetic service lines so that we have diabetic teaching for people in the community so they don't have to go outside this community. So that will be a program that we start on very, very soon. We already have someone in mind to do this, and it will be adding another service to our county and our community. So do I have any questions? Love to entertain them. Got lots of answers today.
Madam Chair, I have some.
Primarily because our chair is not here and he always asks them. I've got to ask him his place. The folks that you're bringing in, are they going to be employees of the hospital or independent practitioners?
They are employees of the hospital.
So that's the model you've decided to go with. I remember there's some question
I would love
about
to
it.
recruit here, but let me tell you why it's so difficult to have this independent model. The way and please don't take this as any offense, but the way the government works is they are putting a lot of requirements on private practitioners, any physician. And it is very costly and it's very tiresome to be able to keep up with all the regulations that are thrown at them. It is a full-time job just doing that. And that's why when we use this employed model, it is to alleviate all of that stressors and those and that immense amount of weight off their shoulders. Things such as malpractice, we cover for them. Building a practice itself, no one can afford advertisement. No one can afford the infrastructure that goes into a private practice. And so that's why the hospitals set up these employed arrangements to help the physician, to help draw them into a community. This is a model that is used everywhere now, and physicians are drawn to this because it alleviates a lot of risk and financial risk that they do not want over their head. Many of these people still have loans that they're paying off, and they may have been out of school for 10 years. And so we help alleviate that for them also.
Okay, thanks.
And do you have another questions? I'm sorry.
Surprisingly, I do.
No surprise to me.
You didn't mention an oncologist. Has UNM had any luck recruiting an oncologist?
Well, we have the one that I told you about that she finishes in June of next year. She is still very interested. We're in communication with her a lot. She has a young child, and she wants to make sure that she's in an environment where that child will be safe and that she will be safe also.
Same as last month, basically.
Yeah, but we do have 2 other oncologists that are in the interview process, and one is coming to town next week. Right?
Great.
So we're not stopping, and we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket.
I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely.
I have a follow-up.
Okay,
to that.
sure.
So you are satisfied with the oncology, the number of hours that UNM is providing oncology in the interim while we're looking for somebody? I assume they're flying someone down
Yes.
to cover that.
Yes. As far as being satisfied, I will not be satisfied till we have a full-time provider here.
Understood, but in the gap, you're satisfied with it?
Yes, and their commitment to us is great.
Okay.
So it is not that quality is not there, it's not that intent is not there, but I will not be satisfied until we get that one provider down here. And I will tell you, Commissioner Edwards, I forecast that there will be a time where we need 2 full-time providers, because that is the way we want to build this service line. It is not just going to be a service line or a service that is a cancer center. This is a service line that we want to focus on that individual from early detection all the way through reconstruction. And so to do that, that is a service line. So that the oncologist being here full-time is only one piece of this, a most important piece, but only one piece of it, of where we're going with this expansion. I also wanted to just, before I turn this over to Richard, where I know that you love these numbers, good, bad, or ugly, but I also want to use this opportunity to tell you how invigorated Richard and I are with this whole strategy of moving forward with our program. And I want to use this opportunity to thank you once again for having the support for us that we have from you. I know that day by day we go by and Richard and I are always saying, how can we do more? What more can we do? How fast can we do this? Because we know that you have entrusted us with this hospital and succeeding at this. And I just want to reiterate one more time how grateful we are, not just Richard and I and everyone in the hospital, but people in this community that are supporting us also. So thank you very much. And if you have no questions?
Oh, wait, I think Commissioner Brown has a couple more.
I do. And one of them may be for Richard. I'll save that as the second one, so you can segue to him if it's for him. You mentioned potentially hiring a diabetic, I don't know if it's an educator or dietitian or consultant, something like that. And this raises a concern with me that I've already felt. One of the big advantages of staying independent, of leaving Gila Regional as a community-owned institution, in my mind, was the idea that we'd have better chances of cooperation with our existing providers and other institutions that are in this field. It's my understanding that the HMS clinic in Baird is maybe losing its lease, the hospital-owned facility there. And when you raised the question of the diabetic program, it certainly added to that concern that maybe we're competing with an existing institution because they have a diabetic education program. So I wonder if you could address whether, this counts as competition and you think it's healthy in that regard, because competition can certainly be healthy, or if it's somehow complementary in a way that you don't foresee any problems, any conflicts with HMS.
I do not see a conflict there, but let me preface this by telling you that we made a commitment to you. We made a commitment to you, and that was to turn this hospital around. In doing that, we also have a commitment with the other providers in this community to work together. Now, sometimes that can be interpreted when you're a hospital is what can a hospital do for us, not what can we do for the hospital. And in fact, I have never heard anyone come up to me and say, Taffy, how can we help you? How can we help the hospital? How can we help you succeed? So that's what I'm talking about, Commissioner Brown, is that this is not just a one-way street. It has to be a avenue where we are not truly competing in a format that is destructive for all entities. I believe that there is a place for all of us, and and you are correct, competition is healthy because it brings in a certain set of quality matrix that needs to be there. And without competition, there is a feeling that you don't have to strive to be better because who are you competing with, right? And quality. But when we are looking at what we need to do as a hospital to provide for the patients that are depending on us and our services, we need to be able to grab every opportunity possible. Otherwise, it becomes that we are lagging behind everyone. So the issue with Baird, yes, we told you we were going to be expanding our footprint, and we're doing that. And everything that we have told you we're going to do, we're doing it, right? Now, nobody ever said before we started this, oh, does this mean you're going to be in competition with somebody? Yeah, we are in competition because we're in competition with Las Cruces, with Deming, with Albuquerque, with Tucson. You bet we're in competition. And we're the little guy out there. And we cannot afford to act like the little guy, so we have to seize every opportunity that comes our way. So I do not see us being doing something, offering something just because HMS offers it that we cannot offer it. They have chiropractors on their staff. There are other chiropractors out there. Do we say to those people, no, you're going to be in competition, you should all go work for HMS? No, we don't say that. This is enterprise. This is freedom of enterprise, and this is what we do. You have entrusted us to grow our business, to do what's right for this community, and that is exactly what we're going to do. We will not let you down.
Okay. Thanks for, did you have a follow-up? No, okay. Thanks for your philosophy about that. And just for the record, it isn't true that nobody said, would this result in competition? Actually, there were independent providers who read your strategic plan before our decision and expressed that very concern to me. So there were folks thinking of that. The last item that is one of the things you said you were going to do, it's in the strategic plan. In fact, it's half of the turnaround revenue, as I recall, was becoming a critical care facility.
Correct.
Are you still pursuing that?
Yes, we are.
And what's that look like in terms of time frame?
I'll let Richard address that, but I will tell you from the time that we started this, you know that there was a fundamental delay in there. And so to become a critical access, you have to have stowed away $5 million in the bank, correct? So as we work through these financial issues that we're doing, and there are many, it seems like we fix a whole bunch of them, and then there's some more that creep up, and we're attacking those as we get them. You have to be financially sound before you can move on to such a huge endeavor, because you have to have about 90 days of cash in the bank to cover all of your expenses, because you're not going to be, we are not going to get reimbursed by the government funding until, that 3-month period, 90 days. I'm sure I'm correct on this. So we have to be financially sound before we push a button that says we're good to go, because once we push that button, we have to have all of our policies in place. We have to make sure that we're financially sound, and that's the goal. I can tell you, as we're working through this, we're about a year behind, and Richard can speak more to that. But before we can get to step Z, we got to go through all the alphabet and make sure we cannot skip steps on this. That's the downfall of many other entities that have tried this. They say, oh, this is a great idea, let's do this. They push the button before they're actually prepared to do this, and that has led to their downfall. We cannot afford a downfall.
Thank you. I actually do have a follow-up to the question you asked before on reaching out to the other entities. What have you all done to reach out to them? Because I really feel that if we can have them sending you their patients and you helping them out and creating some kind of system to where we keep people in Silver City, it's going to help everyone. So
Yes.
What have you done to reach out to them? Because they shouldn't have to always reach out to you, being that you have the hospital.
Yes. Well, there have been some conversations that I think at this point should not be publicly made, although you seem to know about them. But I will tell you that as we're working through this process with HMS, there are some hurdles that we have to overcome, right? And I am certainly willing to overlook many things that have happened in the past because I think they're irrelevant. However, I won't give away the farm. And I want you to understand that. It is my responsibility in working with people that we do have a relationship that it is not one way. And when we look at doing things together, I can tell you just recently, we had an incident that we reached out to them for, we needed a provider for a 24-hour shift in our hospital. And we reached out to them, and we paid for this. And we paid HMS for this, and very handsomely for this. And we had to jump through many hoops to get this done in a very short period of time. And I saw that as being a door opening to collaborative thought process as to how can we help you, how can you help us, and in the future, how can we really expand this relationship. But I can tell you that is being worked on, but it does take two people who are in charge of the entities to come to the table to say, okay, now, how do we work together to expand for both of us? As I've told HMS, I've said I shouldn't have to go out and recruit one family practice doctor. I should not have to do that. But yet I find myself in that position. And I should not have to do that because I should have to be able to have HMS do that and to send us their referrals. Right? I mean, that is the relationship, correct? And so if I'm not able to get those recruits, then those referrals, I have to go out and recruit my own and expand, which is a cost to me that I should not, that I feel I shouldn't even have. But my commitment to the commissioners is that we will succeed as a hospital financially. And so sometimes that is a growth process that has to evolve. It cannot be forced. It has to evolve.
Well, and I do have a question, Madam Chair. I mean, not a question, a comment. I recently had a family member went to Gila Regional in their 4 days, and the service was phenomenal. Thank you very much. I didn't want to mention that.
I thank you for saying
From the
that.
doctors down to the nurses, it was really,
Thank
really
you.
good. Thank you.
Any other question? No. Mr. Brown, I'm going to be hurt if you don't have two more.
Mr. Stokes?
Okay, good morning. Just real briefly, I'll go over the financial results of August. And just give you some highlights, and then I'll entertain any questions you may have. So for the month of August, the hospital ended with a net profit of $176,316. EBITDA for that month was $577,816. So that's in essence, and in our instance, that's really close to cash flow. So we were able to cash flow to the tune of $577. Year-to-date wise, we have a $337,000 loss. For the first 2 months of the fiscal year. Our EBITDA for that same period of time was $465,000. If you compare our loss of $337 year-to-date compared to last year, which was $2.7 million loss, where we've had a turnaround of $2.4 million. We actually, this time last year, had a negative EBITDA of $2 million, so it was a difficult time a year ago. So, one thing that, as we talked in our finance and board meeting just a couple of weeks ago, we noted that for hospitals, especially Gila appears to have a very slow month of July, August, and September. Just appears to be on the slow month. So we've started our fiscal year typically in our slower period of time. And then in October, November, December through March, that's our peak, and then it starts to kind of roll back down to some degree. So we're in our slump for the year. I do want to point out a couple of other issues. In the month of August, we completed our billing 837 rebuild, which was our billing document. We also completed a 837 rebuild, which is really when an insurance company sends us a remittance advice, that's what maps the remittance advice back into Meditech, so for it to continue to function. So that was a major step forward for us. The way it was originally billed, we were over contracting the account, and in a lot of instances creating credit balances on the accounts. It also masked the patient responsibility portion of the stay. So we've got all that fixed now. So that was a big step forward. Cash collections for August was $5.4 million. That's the highest for over the last 14 months by a fair amount. And I believe that put us at 140% of our previous month's net revenue, which I anticipated that happening. As a side note, when I first started, I took a look at our group purchasing organization compliance rate, and we were somewhere in the 80% range. We have moved that up to 90.1%, so we're doing much better as an organization, making sure we buy items on contract. A couple of selected KPIs. We had 72 days cash on hand at the end of August. We had 57 days in accounts payable, so accounts payable actually jumped a little bit from July. Case mix index for August was 1.6, so we had a fairly sick patient population. Now, I want to talk real briefly about a look ahead. September, When I prepared this for the last board meeting, September was not trending well, and we actually ended about where I thought we would end. So the system did generate an additional loss for September, which I'll present that to our board next Friday. So I wanted to take a look, I look at this September, last September, and we're not that far off from really last year, if I recall correctly. However, I wanted to look at October to see how October is trending. So from a revenue perspective, we're trending 11% higher than August in September. So our revenue is bouncing back. Our revenue for September was about $2 million less than what we anticipated collecting. And again, it's that cyclical nature of it appears that's normal for Gila. From a cash collection perspective, our cash collections for September we did not hit our targets there. However, in October, so month to date, as of yesterday, we're running about 23% higher in cash collections. So we hit a little bump in September on several categories. So, but it looks like we're moving in moving in a better direction in October. One thing I want to let the council know and the public through the press is we are implementing our major. Well, let me back up. So we've had a lot of changes in Meditech, which necessitated a lot of changes in processes within the hospital. So we have really taken the month of September and just kind of, just let's coast with the changes that we've made. However, there's one project that's significant to the organization, and that is how do we charge our patients for drugs used at the hospital. And I can tell you that historically there has been no logic applied to that. So you know what I mean. So we have. There has been and there is functionality within Meditech that will allow us to base our patient charge on what we pay for a particular drug. So we're testing now in our test environment these new tables that we've built. Now what does that mean to the public? Well, it means it's going to be about a 25% reduction in drug costs when you come to the hospital. Now, having said that, I'll use the most extreme example that we've seen so far. We had a chemotherapy drug where we were charging $19,000 per dose. Under the new charging methodology, that same drug will be $8,000 and some change. Our reimbursement for that same drug will be roughly around $6,000. So we aren't doing anything to affect the hospital's bottom line, but where it comes to patient's responsibility, we're lowering that cost. And we're also, making sure that there is some logic that can be applied every time to how our patient gets charged for a drug. Whether it's a pill, or it's a liquid, or an injection, or a compounded drug, we have tables built now to do that calculation. Okay. So, to address your question about critical access hospital. One thing, Tappy and I were talking, and we've talked to the Finance Committee about this as well. So, we projected a $5 million increase in additional reimbursement to the hospital based on the review of the 3 prior year cost reports. So one of the things that I want to be really sure that this is a good decision moving forward. In addition to the $5 million we have to have to make this conversion, we want to make sure it's the right decision. So in order to do that, I need some time to continue the improvements in the revenue cycle so that we can make a reasonable decision based on conditions as they exist today, not how they existed 2 years ago. or a year ago. So, I know, and you probably do too, if you look at the report, we have increased net revenue around 3%, which is about $3 million. So I'm more than halfway there to the $5 million. We may, as an organization, find that once we get our revenue cycle more in line with industry standards, we may find that critical access may not be the right solution for us. I'm not saying it's not, but that's a concern to me, because if I hit the 5% increase in net revenue that I have personally set, there will be no need to move to critical access. We will have gained the benefit without going through that process. So to give you an idea of what we're thinking and why we're thinking it and why time is moving a little bit down the road, we just want to make real sure, because once you pull that trigger, it's a very difficult thing. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to move back to the PPO world. So does that help you understand my thinking behind that?
Sure. All of that came up during our process of exploration. There were suitors who said, no, critical access is not the way to go. We don't think so. I realized there was further analysis to be done.
Yes, sir. So that makes me feel good. The other thing, just as for information, I intend to file with the state by the end of day tomorrow with the state licensing agency to convert our primary care practice to a rural health clinic. So that process will begin on Monday. So, and there are multiple other projects that we have, but for probably until the beginning of the next calendar year, I'm kind of hold some of these big projects as we continue to catch up on some of the initiatives that we've already launched. Okay?
Thank you.
If I could just add one other thing. Our strategies that we put together last year or this year were really put together for a purpose, and we all know what that purpose was. And it's time almost to start thinking about next year's strategy. So we will be starting to work on that at the beginning of the year, our strategies, and we will keep you informed. The commissioners, we will keep you informed of what our thought process is on the strategy, so you can weigh in on what you're seeing. We know that there are a lot of things in the government arena that probably that we don't know, and you may be able to give us some guidance on that, and we'd really look forward to your input on those. And we'll be able to share with you also where our success has been and where our shortfalls have been also, and let you know what that is. And we do anticipate in the beginning of February to have another state of the hospital community event, so that we will be giving our report to the community as to where we are on our strategies.
I just have one quick one. On the rural clinic, you have told me, but I've forgotten. How does that increase our reimbursement? Is it per line item on the is it the Medicare?
It's Medicare and Medicaid. It moves our reimbursement from a physician fee schedule to a cost-based program.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So it has the potential to be significant additional reimbursement for the hospital.
And the thing about strategies is it's a living document. You have to always be looking at it to make sure that what you thought was a sound strategy is still a sound strategy, and that goes back to the rural health to make sure it's the right strategy for us, which it definitely is, and to be a rural health hospital, which is totally different.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next item, public input. During this portion of our meeting, we welcome your suggestions and want to hear your concerns. This is not a question and answer period. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. Any individual who would like to discuss an item in more depth may request to be placed on a future agenda. Request forms are available in the county manager's office. Do we have any public input this morning? Okay, thank
You're
you.
letting her off easy.
Good job.
Next item on the agenda are the minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion.
Discussion, though.
Oh, discussion, right. I'm just going to zoom right through here. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, financial reports. I'll entertain a motion to approve or disapprove the October 11th, 2018 expenditure report.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve the September 18, 2018 expenditure, or October 12th, 2018 expenditure report.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, it happens to say October 11th,
I don't care. Can I say 11? I know I started off with 18, but I think I changed it back to 11.
We'll stick with 11.
It's 11.
That works.
That's what I tried to do.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item, new business. First item is a presentation highlighting major programming efforts and impacts regarding Grant County Cooperative Extension Service for fiscal year 2018. Judy O'Loughlin and Justin Watt. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for letting us be here. We appreciate that. I'm going to start off with just a little, first of all, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners and fellow co-workers. I appreciate this time to be here, and Jessica does as well. We're going to keep it brief. We've had a really busy year. One of the things that I wanted to do first off was just kind of give everybody a little background of where the Extension Service came from, because a lot of people aren't aware of it sometimes. It actually has its roots clear back to President Lincoln's time. So that's kind of where it started. There was a couple of acts that were passed to set up land-grant universities and land-grant systems. So New Mexico State University came out of all of this. So that is our land-grant institution in New Mexico. And the Smith-Lever Act of 1914 gave federal funding to the Extension Service. So the reason it's called Extension is we have at our access, every county has an Extension office, and with that, we have access to all the specialists and all the information that comes out of New Mexico State University. So having us in the county brings and extends the university to all of our county residents. So we feel that it's pretty important, and the forefathers saw that as pretty important. If you visit New Mexico State University, the Ag College is on the lower end of the institution, and on the doors there's a statement that says, "The leading object shall be to teach such branches of learning as are related to agriculture and the mechanic arts in order to promote the liberal and practical education of the industrial classes in the several pursuits and professions of life." So our forefathers saw it necessary to put education out to all people. So we differ in the Extension Service than being on campus because we don't have a fixed course of study, we don't confer degrees, we operate non-formally off campus, we have a large audience, we deliver practical subject matter for immediate solutions of problems, we educate with non-formal teaching methods, we don't take a roll, we don't get a grade, we do require some change of behavior, client participation is purely voluntary. Technical service is primarily grounded in agriculture, home economics, and other related areas. Clientele is of supreme importance, and programs are based on the needs and the people in the communities that we serve. Okay, the other thing that's very important in this jet age and internet world is that the information that we provide is always evidence and research based. There's all kinds of information you can find on the www.web, but it may or may not be true and may not work. So we work with an advisory committee. I have an advisory committee. Jessica has an advisory committee for 4-H and Ag, and then we are having a general overall one. So we want to hear from constituents, and we want to hear from Grant County clientele on what issues are important. So, that being said, I'm a family and consumer science agent. That's what my title is now. It used to be called a home economist. So the major programming that we've gotten accomplished in the last year, so we're talking October 1st to September 30th, okay? I think a lot of you are aware of the program. It's kind of my signature program. It's the Strong Women, Strong Bones program. That we started our 10th year. And if you come to our office between 9 and 10:30, 10:45, you can't find a parking spot. That class has been just such a success for so many different women in the community. And then the other thing that my supervisors always ask, and that you all should ask too, is, so what? So what? You have a class, what happens? Well, women get toned, they get stronger, they are more independent, they can function longer in their own home without someone else having to help them, and they can realize this change within 2 weeks of coming to class. It happens every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And the impacts that they tell me verbally and that they actually write on evaluations are pretty powerful. So last year, this class, after 10 years, I really cannot believe that it continues to grow. But last year I had 4,614 women sign in, and some people don't even remember to sign in. That's not different women, but it is 170 different women last year. Okay, so it touches a lot of people. And so the numbers are up. Each year they've been up, which just kind of amazes me. And it's a free program. It doesn't cost anything. We got all of these supplies through some grants. When it first started in 2009, sorry. And it just continues to be a great feeder program for other programs that we offer. And a wide variety of residents come through that class. We sent you guys some reports on all the numbers, but we're not going to take all that time today because everybody's busy, we know. Another program that I did last year was one called Healthy You. They sent us to Colorado State University to get some hands-on training to change some habits and some lifestyle things that are happening with people in the world today. So about 25 to 30% of adults in New Mexico are obese or overweight, and that leads to heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, certain cancers, and other chronic conditions. So this class is a 6 weeks long session. We did 2 of them. And the participants come, and each lesson has a physical activity component to it, an action plan, so they have to kind of put something into writing that they're going to commit to. It kind of has a contract. We have a scale that they weigh in on each week, so they're kind of tied to the scale. Every participant that came and completed, there was 2 classes, and 18 actually completed. Everybody lost weight. Some lost more than others, and some continue to lose. I actually did this program myself, and I'm down 33 pounds. So it works. If I can do it, by God, anybody can do it. So it is a lifestyle change, and you just look at food differently, and you look at physical activity, all of it being in balance. It's another evidence-based program. The other thing right now we have going is these chronic disease self-management programs. And as you notice, a lot of the things that we do have a 6 weeks component. Even when Taffy was talking about diabetes education, we all need to work together. We all need to collaborate and support each other, because the more times people hear something and get an opportunity to put it into use, that's when it really makes differences in their lives. And research shows that it takes about at least 4 times, 6 times is better, because then it's kind of ingrained, and then each time you can kind of see the light bulb go on, and they learn another little bite that helps them be successful in their journey. So the chronic pain and the diabetes chronic pain self-management classes are funded by the Department of Health and some other medical companies throughout the state, so it doesn't cost them anything. We actually call it a pay it forward. So as they fill out their paperwork as their participants, the next participants will be able to take that class for free. The cost value with the training of instructors and the time and the materials is about $350 per person that they don't have to pay. So both of those are in place. We did 2 sessions of the chronic disease last year, and we're in the second one of the diabetes that's happening right now at my office. Mary Ann Finn and Melvin Gilbert are actually holding that down while I'm here reporting today. And as you all know, they were certified diabetes educators through the Department of Health. And a lot of these support people that we had when I first started in 2006, they're gone. They're not here anymore. So I get a lot more requests for some diabetes education, but I'm not a nurse and I'm not a dietitian. I can help them with the very basic, how many carbs they should have, what their plate should look like, and so that practice, like 4 to 6 times, is when you see some differences in their life. So the more that they can get, the better they will be. And it is a problem. Diabetes remains a big problem in our community. So the other thing we do around diabetes is Kitchen Creations Diabetes Cooking School, and that we hold every January, the last Saturday of January and the first Saturday of February. And we do 4 sessions, but we do 2 sessions a Saturday. Other counties do it in 4 different sessions, but in Grant County, we tend to lose them the last 2 sessions. They don't come back. So when we get them for 2 Saturdays, we have them captive, we prepare lunch together, and that is very successful. So they learn how to take all the other education they've gotten from different providers and different services and put it together with a certified diabetes educator teaches the information, and we cook together and they see what their plate should look like. And then the second Saturday is usually around the Super Bowl, so we try to do some kind of a Super Bowl type meal or snack so that they can see how their plate should look, and then they can be healthier when they're also doing some celebration. And another program that I'm sure you all are aware of, but it's leveraged because we're in the community, and it doesn't have to come out of any county funding, is the ICANN Nutrition Education Program, which is funded by the USDA program for SNAP-Ed. And so we have a 3/4 time employee who's starting her 20th year now, and that education goes out to a lot of Grant County residents. So that's another thing that we're able to leverage some grants to help supplement our being here, and that always helps with other things. We got certified, so if someone needs to get the certification for food manager or food handler, we can do that through my office. There are fees, not from me and not for extension, but they have to go, some of them there's either an online version or there is an instructor version where I can help instruct, which there's no fee, but the testing, there's always some cost to like $40 for that. So that is in place if someone needs that service as well. And in addition, we have 4-H youth development. I help Jessica some with that. She's pretty much the lead person on that. I do most of the family consumer science stuff that pertains to 4-H. And then I do a lot of other things that aren't on major programming. So someone calls in and wants to know about, say, food preservation, or I get a lot of calls about large quantity preparation. Somebody's doing a family reunion or a school event or whatever, and they need to know how many potatoes will cook up to feed 200 or things like that. I get a lot of questions on that. Some food safety issues, I will get some calls from people like, somebody brought me this menudo from Las Cruces, and I don't think it was kept refrigerated. Do you think I should eat it? And I'm like, no, don't eat it. Those kind of questions. So we do fill a lot of things that aren't on our reports on a daily basis. And then last, I wanted you all to know that I got an award at a national convention like 2 weeks ago. So my peers honored me with a Distinguished Service Award for my program. So I'm like, yay, your money's kind of paying off some, I hope. Anyway, I felt honored to receive that, and I really do appreciate the support. I want everyone to know that we're here. If you have a need, let us know, and we will try our very best to get it addressed. The most important thing is research and evidence-based information. Okay? Thank you.
Judy, congratulations on that award.
Thank you. Jess.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Swap, and I am the agriculture and the 4-H agent for Grant County. 2 jobs, 1 salary. My joke. I'm here to just report straight numbers to you. I don't go into any real individual programming other than 3 highlights. As part of my job, livestock production is one of those. I hosted 4 programs to 109 participants. Programs covered managing cattle herds in drought conditions, wildfire prevention, preparation, and the ACES and ACES High Calf Marketing Program, Beef Quality Assurance Certification, Gila National Forest Plan, toxic weeds, and proper travel and documentation for horses. The evaluation of the cattle producer program participants in January 2018 revealed that out of those 36 that participated, 76% increased their knowledge about how to better manage their herd during times of drought, 90% increased knowledge about how to better market their calf crop, 90% increased knowledge about how to better protect their property from potential fire, 85% increased knowledge about proper use and handling of vaccines, 95% implemented changes on their operation from the education that they received at the workshop. 95% reported a positive attitude change towards New Mexico Cooperative Extension Service because of the workshop. Now I'm going to shift into horticulture. For the fiscal year 2017-2018, there were 10 programs to 99 participants. Programs covered container gardening, plot gardening, or small plot gardening, backyard gardening, spring vegetable gardening, grafting, composting, vermicomposting, fall gardening, and beekeeping. The evaluation of the 2018 horticulture program participants revealed that out of the 45 that participated just in 2018, 84% increased knowledge on general gardening practices in Grant County, 90% increased knowledge of backyard gardening because of attending 1 or more of the workshops, 78% received science-based education from 1 or more of the workshops, 75% used the information learned at 1 or more of the workshops at their home. During this year, I also moderated 2 agricultural-related conferences, the Chili Conference and the Sustainable Agricultural Conference to 253 people. I held 2 general agricultural programs to 19 participants. Programs covered agriculture as a business and agricultural business planning. I also do house visits when people call and have issues with, they want to know weeds they have, trees, bugs, you name it. Those totaled 16. I went to 16 homes in Grant County last year, or this fiscal year. The professional organizations that I'm involved in are the Grant County Copper Cowbells, the Grant County Farm and Livestock Bureau, the New Mexico Association of County Agriculture Agents, where I'm the communications committee chair for that organization, and the National Association of County Agriculture Agents, and the Grant County Soil and Water Conservation. Awards that I've been given, I was a regional finalist for the Communications Award for a promotional piece that I submitted to the National Association of County Agricultural Extension Agents. Some other facts, I produced 12 monthly ag-based newsletters sent out to 157 recipients. You get those. I run 3 Facebook pages to 228 followers, and my total contacts for the ag side of my job was 21,952 total contacts for animal science and natural resources, as well as plant sciences. Okay, my other job, 4-H. For this year, 266 youth members. There were 60 adult members, 6 clubs, 12 workshops with 86 participants. I tagged 197 animals for the county and state fairs. I attended 3 fairs, organized the Copper Classic Livestock Jackpot to 89 participants. I did 45 livestock project home visits where I went to their houses and I weighed animals and gave advice on proper feeding strategies for the fair. I organized the Grant County Fair Livestock Judging Contest to 18 participants. In the New Mexico Certified Shooting Sports Instructor, I am certified as a coordinator, a rifle coach, and an archery coach. I'm the Southwest District Archery Superintendent, and I organized the Southwest District Archery Contest this year to 66 participants. I attended 16 club meetings, 2 state 4-H agent trainings, 4-H in-service, and 4-H adult forum. 4-H Southwest District Contest from Grant County, we had 37 Grant County members participate with 7 first-place teams, 5 second-place teams. At the State 4-H Conference, we had 14 members attend. We had 2 second-place teams, 1 third-place team, and 1 national qualifying team. State 4-H Shooting Sports, we had 6 teams in the top 10, and Grant County was the largest county in attendance. This year we have 1 State 4-H officer, youth officer on that team. We've gone to 2 state leadership events with 10 participants, done 9 school visits, the Egg to Chick program for 3 classes, as well as done a club officer training to 13 participants, where they self-reported that 100% of them increased their leadership skills, 92.3% of them increased their self-confidence, 84% increased knowledge of parliamentary procedure, and 100% increased knowledge of club officer duties. Total 4-H contacts are 83,587. The professional organizations that I'm involved in terms of 4-H are the National Association of Extension 4-H Agents and the New Mexico Association of Extension 4-H Agents. Other things related to 4-H, I put out 12 monthly newsletters, and I run 5 Facebook pages to 768 followers. Any questions? You have a copy in your email.
You guys do awesome work at the extension office. Thank you so much for all you do for the county. Both of you.
Thank
And
you.
your staff.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next item on the agenda is to approve, disapprove the 2019 New Mexico counties legislative priorities.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the 2019, I believe it's just, New Mexico County legislative priorities.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is approve, disapprove the ratification of grant agreement number A.
We have a member.
No, we're fine. Thank you.
A16-46, Amendment Number 2 with the State of New Mexico Local Government Division for CDBG Project 16-C-RS-I-04-G-91 to CASA.
Madam Chairman, I move to approve A1646.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So I'm realizing that the next 2 items we probably should have moved during the approval of the regular meeting agenda. Approve, disapprove agreement number A18-32 contract renewal for county manager, and approve, disapprove agreement number A18-33 contract renewal for county attorney should come after the executive session. Are we okay to move those? Do we need a motion to do that? Okay. Next item is approve, disapprove agreement number A18-34, State of New Mexico Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management for 2018 Emergency Management Performance Grant EMT 2018-EP-123406-SO1. May I have a
Make a
motion?
motion to go ahead and approve number 8-18-30.
Second.
Any discussion on that item? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is approve, disapprove agreement number A18-35 bargaining unit contract for 2018-2020.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the agreement number 8-18-35.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by... Pardon me?
That's the discussion.
A big congratulations.
Indeed.
A lot of work.
A lot of hard work went into that.
Kind of like sweeping the floor, though. You got to do it all the time.
Got to do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item is approve, disapprove resolution number R18-39, a resolution declaring the vacation and abandonment of Bircher Road near Mule Creek.
Madam Chair? Go ahead. I move to approve R 1839.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, what's going on with that? Will? Can you give me a little brief explanation?
So this is the road
On Tuesday, want to ask questions.
that dead ends, it's on Spires Ranch, it dead ends at the ranch house there. They have requested that we vacate that. It went through the road abandonment committee with their recommendation to abandon. One of the questions was, do you still have access to the state land that is adjacent to that? You do, because the H-Bar-Y Ranch Road runs there. There's also several two-track ranch roads that run across there, but of course that's up to the state land office or BLM whether or not they allow the rancher to close those. That's not their intent. They just want to stop the traffic in and out of their
ranch.
Yes.
Perfect.
Any further discussion?
I had the same question to Misha, and he went through the same explanation. As long as you're willing to take a hike, you still have access.
Because I'm totally against landlocked, so.
And that was the first one.
Yeah, great. Once again, we agree.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Did we have a motion already?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is approve, disapprove resolution number R18-40, a resolution declaring the vacation and abandonment of Allen's lots 5, 6, and 7, road easement only, and authorizing the sale thereof. Have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion. We approve resolution number R-18-40.
Second.
Any discussion on that item?
Want to address that one?
Same.
It's a little different.
It's different.
This one's a little more complicated, if you will. So this road was dedicated to the public when the subdivision was established. I think it was in the late 60s. So what happened at the time, the subdivider sold the right-of-way, which he really didn't have the authority to do. I'll let you, yeah, it'll make more sense when you see that. He sold it to the Karchners in the late 70s. This was figured out now that the Karchners have a contract to sell the property. So the road dead ends, like I think he was just showing you on there. It has a gate at the end. It doesn't prevent any access issues.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
I had discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Since that's owned on both sides by different people, are we trying to sell it to both of them, or we haven't made that decision yet, or? Am I confused here? This is what we're talking about, right? See, this is owned by these people.
It's just the portion that the Karchners have the road.
Just this portion, that's right. Never mind. My question was that.
Does seem like only a few feet where that applies, but
Yeah, I get it.
But remember that the boundaries are off.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That's why we're looking at it.
Okay.
All right, have we had enough discussion on that item? Totally lost track of what I was going to say.
Ask for the vote.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is approve, disapprove resolution number R18-41, a resolution relating to the proposed industrial revenue bonds entitled Grant County, New Mexico Taxable Industrial Revenue Bonds, Great Divide Wind Farm LLC Project, Series 2018, declaring the intent of Grant County to issue such industrial revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount up to $400 million in connection with a proposed project located within the boundaries of Grant County for the purpose of inducing Great Divide Wind Farm LLC to develop the project site and to construct and install the project, and directing the county clerk to publish notice of intent to consider an ordinance authorizing issuance and sale of the bonds in a newspaper of general circulation within the county.
Madam Chair, for purposes of discussion, I'd like to move that we approve Resolution R 1841.
Second.
Discussion? So, in the time from Tuesday to now, I had several phone calls about this issue, and some questions came up. So, I see there are some folks here, and we have some questions for you. So realizing that that this is just the first part in the process of negotiation and getting to the ordinance and all that kind of stuff, we just feel like we've had some questions from the public and we want to begin the conversation. So the first question is, what are the avian studies public, and what are the results of those? So the specific question that was brought to me by a constituent is, given the location, the proposed location of the turbines, that there's a significant migratory bird paths in that area, and so are the avian studies public, and can you explain the results of those?
So I can say that Scout has been doing avian studies since 2017. Correct. And they have had meetings with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the State Wildlife Agency. Game and Fish. The results of those studies, I do not believe that the studies have been fully completed yet. I know that there are ongoing studies, and I don't think any results have been made public yet. Is that correct?
That's correct. Our biologists are still finalizing the first year studies. We met up in Albuquerque with the service and with the state office last week.
So just to clarify, for the record then, Game and Fish is conducting the study?
No, Scout is conducting the study with advisory input from Game and Fish. So, we hire consultants. The consultants devise scopes that are compliant with Game and Fish and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services requirements. And then we go present our findings to Game and Fish and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and they provide additional input. So, one of the inputs that we received last week is they requested additional study on certain items. So, we are working with them to complete all study items and gather all the information that they request, and then discuss the results of that, and then move forward under their direction.
So if there were to be found, I don't even know, a migration pattern that would be disturbed by the turbines, for example, what would happen at that point?
Well,
who presents the results of the studies? Are you going to present them to us before the ordinance comes up? How's that going to work?
As far as how it dovetails with the IRB process, that's a question I'm not sure what the answer is standing in front of you right now, but we can certainly go and do a little bit more research on the actual scheduling of that. And how it impacts the IRB process, again, that's something that we'll have to figure out.
On the same subject, at Tuesday's presentation, which I haven't yet received, I don't know if you've received it yet, Charlene, so I can't cite the exact wording, but certainly my impression that you indicated the avian studies had found no significant impact.
I don't recall actually mentioning the avian studies specifically. We did present an overall schedule whereby environmental studies had begun last year and were ongoing. And Charlene, I emailed you the presentation yesterday, so if you haven't received it, let me know and I'll resend it.
So it was my impression from the constituent that I spoke with, the Daily Press article mentioned the avian studies, studies?
It was mentioned, but that's okay. We'll get a copy of what was presented on Tuesday. And I think we'd have the most accurate update, so as far as the facts are concerned, that's good.
Okay, sure. And I apologize if we discussed it.
That's all right. I'm curious about the regulatory handles on that. You're talking with Game and Fish and with Fish and Wildlife Service. And of course, there's the International Migratory Bird Treaty. What other regulations do you have to comply with if this is happening on private land?
Well, so there are a variety of regulations that apply whether we're on private land or not.
Related to birds?
Correct. Migratory Bird Treaty Act is certainly one of those. Other federal regulations, for example, Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act apply regardless of whether you're on federal or private land. There is a certain level of working with consultants and working with agencies to determine to what extent the agencies wish to be involved. We're in the middle of that process right now.
So is Game and Fish involved just because it's good to involve them, not because they have a specific regulatory handle?
No, we are proposing to use some state land. So, Game and Fish would have specific authority over certain parts of the project.
How much of the 24,000 acres is state land?
They said it was all private.
24,000 acres, you're looking at about 12 to 13,000 acres.
So about half of it's public land?
Correct.
Okay. So, when I use the language avian studies, does that include bats?
Good question.
Yes, it
The
does.
person that I talked to asked about that.
Yes, and we are conducting bat studies through the use of acoustic monitoring devices as we conduct the avian. So the methodologies employed with avian studies are typically point counts, whereby we're physically sending biologists out in the field on a schedule that's usually determined by reviewing agency best practices and agency recommendations and guidelines. And the consultants that we use are, in this case, West, right? West, correct. Are very familiar with various, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services and state agency guidelines on avian studies. So point counts to go out and literally count birds, determine birds' behavior, what are they doing, where are they doing it, what times of day, what seasons are they doing it, and sort of compile that into a report, and that covers both, common species and also special status species, threatened and endangered species. Additionally, they will assess the habitat to see if, beyond just observed behavior of birds, are there the habitats existing for specific bird types, typically species of concern. Bat acoustic monitoring is done to determine presence and behavior of bats. It's because of when bats tend to be active, it's hard to determine, it's hard to go out and count bats. So we mount acoustic monitoring devices that record bat navigation and bat calls as they do this. And that way the biologists can determine what species are out there, when are they active, where are they active, what are they doing.
So how much of the electricity that's going to be generated by these turbines is going to be sold in New Mexico? How much are New Mexicans going to benefit from this electricity?
Part of that depends upon our off-taker.
Your off-taker?
The purchaser.
The power purchaser.
Thank you.
So the easy, fast answer is that we don't know yet. I know that Scout is in the process of marketing the electricity from the project. Depending on who purchases it, that could be any combination of utilities or potentially commercial and industrial partners. For example, it's become increasingly common for large public companies who wish to purchase renewable energy to go straight to the source. So to sign a purchase contract with a company like Scout, Facebook, Walmart, Google, these companies do this on a regular basis. So Scout's still marketing the power, and we don't know how much of it is going to go where yet. And when you think about electricity and where it goes and who it benefits, there's two different things to think about. Somebody somewhere might be specifically purchasing the output from a certain plant. And there's an entire market for electricity that, people buying and selling electricity in various time frames. And then there's the actual physical impact of putting electricity onto a grid. Regardless of who signs what contract, we can't determine where electricity goes. It goes where it's needed. It goes where the laws of physics and supply and demand dictate that it goes. So specifically to how much New Mexico would benefit, putting electricity on the grid at this particular location potentially strengthens local power distribution markets and prevents issues with the power market or power distribution system by having a source of generation here. And then if a local company or local utility buys the electricity for distribution to their customers or for use in their facility, Mexico would benefit that way. I'd also encourage the commission to consider that, commissioners to consider that many products are exported or created and exported out of state lines. The crops that are grown in the local area but are sold and exported outside of state lines. There's an extent to which those benefit local economic interests, but the products themselves are used elsewhere. So this is similar.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Do you mind asking? How many employees will be employed in those 2,400 acres, and approximately how much money will be coming into New Mexico into our area?
So in terms of how many employees, there are two different time frames.
24,000, I'm sorry.
Sure. There are two different time frames to think about. One is the construction time frame, and that's when we're building the facility. There will be a very intense but temporary employment impact during the construction time frame. Anywhere from 275 to 300 employees at the height of construction. And those are, of course, temporary jobs. Construction of a wind project is typically a 9 to 12, 18 months at the outside time frame. So you're looking at about a year to a year and a half worth of 275 to 300 at its maximum temporary jobs. On a long-term basis, a wind project of this size will typically require anywhere from 10 to 15 on-site employees to conduct operations and maintenance over the long term. As far as what that translates into local dollars, we'd have to go do a little bit more digging as far as what specialties will be employed, what the local labor market for these specialties looks like. Some of that labor might be able to be sourced locally depending on what is available. Some of it may be imported, but in terms of the long-term jobs, regardless of whether those people are hired here or imported from out of state, those are local jobs that will, they're tied to the location of the wind farm, so it's local employment that's created there. And we are still researching, what the likely breakdown of local expenditures would be, but we do have comparative numbers from other wind projects that we've built that could serve as sort of a loose guide for what you might experience here.
So by approving this resolution, where are we in the process, and how much longer will it take to get your feasibility studies done, and so we can review those and continue to support this project if need be at that time?
So specifically to the IRB process, approving this IR simply starts the conversation between the county and Scout. And the next step would be a series of more detailed documents that would set up the structures involved in that process. So there would be a bond ordinance and a lease between the county and Scout, and a few other key documents that would be prepared. And I think that, just looking at that process, is about 2 to 3 months or longer, depending on how fast we can agree on language in those documents. As far as the overall schedule for the wind project, we sort of envision breaking ground sometime during 2019. I think the current schedule proposes a late 2019 groundbreaking, so October, November of next year. That could move forward or backward, depending on how fast we're able to accomplish certain items. And then facility construction would begin in earnest with major equipment being delivered in 2020, and then ideally the project is online and generating power by the end of 2020. I think you're looking at a COD of
Ideally, end of October 2020, but there's a little cushion built in.
so about 2 years from today, if the project moves forward as we expect it will.
Thank you. Madam Chair, in additional response, and maybe they said it and I missed it, but you asked about revenues to us and to New Mexico, and I'm not sure you mentioned the other potential revenues of negotiated payments in lieu of taxes that the county would receive. Because of the way the IRB is structured, we wouldn't get property taxes until the lease had finished, which could be 20 or 30 years. There's gross receipts taxes on some of the items, and I was going to mention one other that now I've managed to forget.
There would also be pilot.
I mentioned the pilot, right, the payments in lieu of taxes, and the gross receipts. Maybe that was, well, then of course there's the direct payments to the landowners. That was the other piece.
And when your study is complete, will all this be broken down for the county commission to see?
Our goal is to provide as much information as the county needs to make these decisions. So, if it would help the county, then we can do breakdowns. It's important to keep in mind that at this stage, a lot of this is very much, I would characterize it as rough estimates. We have what we've done in the past. We have what local and state taxes amount to. We can apply what we've experienced in the past to those numbers and come up with rough estimates for you.
Great, thank you.
Just add to Commissioner Brown's. So currently, about half of that's private land. We're getting agricultural rates on that, which is very small. So what our goal is, or what the county manager's goal should be, is to negotiate that rate to where we receive more than we're receiving now in the pilot, which we call it PILT.
Is that in the form of a directive?
Well, I don't think so.
Yeah, well, I would increase the expectations above more than now, because now it's effectively zero. It's very, very low at $1.80 taxable value per acre. So, yeah, her goal is, I assume, to maximize it for the county.
But I think the point is virtually there's no way it can be. We're going to get more revenue than we are currently. And the other thing is on that state land, you're not getting any revenue. So once that's the negotiating point, there's facilities on that state land that they own that could be some, So I'm not negotiating for anybody, but I'm just letting Gabe know kind of what I'm thinking out there is why I'm going to support this.
And presumably there's state lease money as well, not just the property tax value of those facilities, but if you're looking at what the benefit to the state.
Yes, part of the lease with the State Lands Trust, there are annual payments, rent to be paid to the state, state lands office.
Exactly.
So then, I have one other question on the bond itself, bond ordinance. It's still, we issue the ordinance. There's no, it doesn't go to the voters and that sort of thing, right? The whole ordinance process would be when we go to actually considering the ordinance, that would be when people could do public comment and those sorts of things, once we get to that point. But all of these other things, the revenue and that sort of stuff, would be negotiated prior to that, correct?
And I have an additional question about the negotiations,
which is related to the other questions about avian impacts. And I think there are potentially some other environmental concerns based on the use of the land and the roads that are created and access to those roads. And my question is there room in the local negotiations, the negotiations with the county, to address those concerns if we feel for some reason that Game and Fish and Wildlife haven't adequately addressed them?
So I guess I'm not entirely clear, what specific items you're getting at, but I do know that there are a number of negotiations that take place with the county and specific to roads. One of those negotiations is a road use agreement. So I don't know if you're specifically trying to address.
Well, that would be, sure, that would be one. Yeah.
Certainly.
I mean, we could keep it concrete and stick to avian if you wanted. Let's say there was the studies come out and indicate, a 10% bird kill rate or something. I have no idea what they would discover. And let's say that the regulatory agencies say that's fine, and let's say this commission feels that's not fine. Is that something that could be included in those negotiations? I would guess it's non-standard, but since do we have Mr. Burkholz again on the line?
Yes, I am on the phone, and Commissioner, I appreciate the question. I think it's a very good one, and I think we can answer it in the following way. The lease document is actually the substantive document that will define the relationship between the developer and the county. Of course, the lease document will not be approved until the ordinance is approved later on down in the process. Two things could happen. You could postpone, if you wanted to, the decisions to issue the bonds until you were satisfied on those issues, or you could negotiate terms within the lease in the same way that we negotiate the payment in lieu of taxes, the clawback of benefits, so that the county's position on this, or frankly any particular issue, could be objectively stated, and the remedies for the county in the event of concerns or circumstances developing in regard to those issues would occur. So I think the answer is that within the lease document, which is adopted when your ordinance is adopted, there is sufficient ability to negotiate such terms and remedies for such terms as you feel appropriate before you decide to go forward with the bondage.
Great, that's perfect explanation. But just for clarification, we can't get to that point unless we do the resolution for intent, correct? Which is what's before us today.
Yes, that is correct, because today's resolution also is a resolution required by statute to allow you to hear an ordinance. The statute says that you have to take action as a governing body in resolution to authorize the clerk to go forward with a publication, etc. So delay on today's action could allow you to continue to discuss this, but it would not allow the process to proceed to ordinance until the commission advises the county clerk by resolution that it intends to consider the ordinance and that a publication needs to be made.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? So we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve resolution number R18-41. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is approve, disapprove resolution number R1842, adoption of Grant County Employee Manual.
It looks like the unit has gone down.
Really? I see Gabe's blank, mine's blank. It's just this half of the room.
Yeah, what you trying to do?
You need to know basis only.
What you doing over there?
Well, I remember the manual. I memorized the whole thing.
I was going to say you read it from cover to cover.
I move to approve R1842.
Second the motion?
Any discussion?
What, just have one question. Can anyone explain to me any grievance procedure for direct employees under the manager? Like, say you're a finance person, your executive secretary.
Imagine. I think it breaks down into at-will and non-at-will. If you're at-will, you can be discharged without just cause. You're not going to get a grievance process that avenue. If you are a regular employee under the manual, you will get the just cause, due process, grievance process, the same as you do now.
plus the union handbook policies and what have you, correct?
If you are a union employee, then you would go under that whole, maybe I should clear that up, just in case there's any confusion. If you're a union employee, you get all the same union process that you do now, under the contract. The grievance and the grievance process in the employee manual will not apply to union employees. It'll be...
And I think that's where there was some confusion.
Okay. And that's the same as it has been in the past, is that there's sort of this, a little overlap when an issue is not addressed in the union contract and it is addressed in the employee manual. It's always been that then it will apply to a union employee. But as long as the issue is addressed by the union contract, a union employee will fall under there.
Just wanted some clarification, because I know there were some questions on that.
That's how it's going to work.
Thank you.
So that brings to mind a clarifying question for me, because as I heard Commissioner Ramos' question and your response to that, your response to Commissioner Ramos' question implies that the grievance was filed because the employee was terminated.
Well,
what if,
you're right. There's actually a disciplinary. That's actually broken up now. There's a grievance process and a disciplinary.
Let me ask my question and then maybe. Okay. So, if one of the county manager's direct reports has a complaint, is there a process in the manual that's outlined in the manual for them to be heard?
If they are an at-will employee, no. However, they still can go to the county manager, the same as they always have.
But if the issue is with the county manager?
If the issue is with me.
They would probably come to me and I would suggest, well, why don't you go to a commissioner, something like that.
But the process is not outlined in the
manual. No, and actually, I don't believe that is different from the way we are approaching our hiring department heads at this point. What we do with a department head right now is they have, we've been implementing the at-will status that we're describing right now. Over several years this has been happening. So we still have some department heads that fall under the regular employee process. However, I think most of our department heads at this point have been hired as at-will employees under an acknowledgement form process where they say, yes, I understand I'm an at-will employee, that I do not have grievance rights. So this has been a process that's been going on for a while. It happened with my contract. Does that make sense? I don't believe this is something new. It's just been happening over a period of time, and now we are changing the manual
to reflect
that. And the way we had been doing it through attrition is through doing acknowledgement forms when you get hired, saying, okay, you fall into the employee manual except for these things. Similar to our employment contracts, this acknowledgement form is something that employees that get hired, they read through it, they acknowledge it, they sign it. So I don't believe this is a new surprise. And it's not going to affect employees that were hired as regular employees. Does that make... I don't know, do you need more clarification than that? However, for department heads, no, there is not going to be this due process for disciplinary matters or grievances. What they will do is pretty much what they do now is, they go to the county manager, and if it's about the county manager, for instance, if it's, sexual harassment, they would follow that process that's in the manual that says, okay, if it's your boss, you go over here. Does that make sense? I think if there was a situation, I think they would come to me and they would say, hey, I don't know how to deal with this. It's about Charlene. And then I would start a process, probably through the commissioners somehow.
Madam Chairman, if I may, also, this doesn't preclude the whistleblower act at all. So if Charlene is breaking the law or doing something like that, you still have that. I mean, that would probably be your main complaint. That would be a problem. But I believe that a county manager should be able to hire the best and brightest and the directors that she wants on her team too, so.
Oh, I'm not disputing that at all. I think my question was directly related to the fact that if she hired one of those best and brightest and then they decided they had some kind of grievance against her, what would be their recourse?
And did we mention, so on page 28, it says where the county manager is the department head imposing the discipline, the employee may appeal the disciplinary action to the county attorney.
So that
it does not say to a commissioner, which I think you mentioned.
I like it.
That answers my question. That actually answers my question.
Which page was that?
Page 28, it's the last paragraph of 657. I'm not sure what the county attorney would do.
So that's in the disciplinary process, okay.
Exactly. No longer talking about firing, talking about discipline. It's not clear to me what your discretion would be, especially if we change, as I'm inclined to do, your reporting supervisor from us to the county manager.
The idea is that Charlene is not going to be, or the county manager is not going to be an impartial decision maker, obviously, about herself. So we're just choosing someone else that would know how to do it.
I realize that's the goal. I don't know how to fix it.
You're recognizing a difficult situation that I think most counties have to deal with. Once you get to the top, you don't have anywhere to appeal it to.
That's right.
We could always keep working on this section. If you had some ideas, I recommend that we go ahead and put this one in place because it has a lot more process than the old manual had in it. But if you had thoughts about, well, maybe we should try dealing with that appeal through this avenue, we can always take a look at that. I mean, there's no reason why we can't.
I think the thing to keep in mind here is that this conversation isn't about Charlene as the county manager, but as in any county manager that we might employ in the future or whatever. So my questions, I don't have any issue with going ahead and approving this, but I think maybe that section might need a little bit more work, as you're suggesting.
I guess we've been fortunate that I don't think we've had to deal with that in the entire time I'm here. I've always been aware, okay, we have this weird little area where we don't have anywhere to appeal to, so that's what
I'm not anticipating any issues, but I also think that, these kinds of documents, policy documents like this, have to cover, they're not about personalities, they're about
absolutely
the structure. Is that all of the discussion on this issue that we need to have at this point? So we have a motion and a second on resolution number R18-42. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next item is award or reject IFB B1901, addition to Whiskey Creek Volunteer Fire Station number 2.
Madam Chair, I move to approve Sackatone Construction with the low bid and also adding alternative 3. So the the cost would be $319,313.13. There's a lot of ones and threes in it. Plus first receipt tax.
And I second.
What were you going to say?
It's in Jacob's recommendation.
Oh, yeah, that's what motion is. Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Next item on the agenda is award or reject IFB B1903 Tyrone Access Bridge.
Madam Chair, I move we approve, we award IFB B1903 for the Tyrone Access Bridge.
Second.
To Big R Bridge.
Thank you. Actually hadn't loaded that yet. There it is. To Big R Bridge, in the amount of $86,696.
And not 13 cents.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move to recess the Grant County Board of Commissioners.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
First item is approve, disapprove.
Call to order the...
Oh, I call to order the Grant County Healthcare Claims Board. First item on the agenda is approve, disapprove the September 2018 health plan claims in the amount of $18,916.50.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next item is to approve, disapprove the indigent burial from Bacchus Funeral Home in the amount of $600.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, I move to adjourn the Grant County Healthcare Claims Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will reconvene as the Grant County Board of Commissioners. We will stand for elected officials reports. Mr. Truieta?
Madam Chair, County Commissioners, guess what? I have no report for this month.
Oh my goodness.
I knew you were going to say that, Harry. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I'd just like to remind everybody that we do have early voting going on in the Grant County Clerk's office. And starting as of Saturday the 20th, we will start our second location in Baird. Come on, vote.
The 20th is going well, I understand.
It is going well. We're averaging approximately about 200 people a day.
Great.
And we already have,
What was number 14?
so we have about 1,135 issued absentee ballots that are already out, and we've already received about 400 back. So it's busy. It's going good.
Great.
It's going good. Just come on, vote.
That's great. Next item on the agenda is Commissioners' reports. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Caston, do you have a report today?
I just want to remind everybody once again, vote. It's one of the few things that you get to do to make a difference in the world. So go vote.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I didn't have time to compose it due to cancellation of a flight on Boutique Air that took up my morning. But I do want to make some observations. Yeah, this timing was bad. One of our jobs, I think, as county commissioners is to keep an eye on the big horizon, on the picture, on the future. I think we all agree with that and what it means for our county. And some of the events are so, I guess, broad that it's hard to say what they mean for our county. But recently, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change issued a new report at the request of a number of developing countries that looked at what it would take to keep global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, rather than the 2 degrees Celsius, which was the target of the Paris Climate Accords. And 1.5 degrees, the Intergovernmental Panel found, and this report was accepted by the Trump administration, although they reserved the right to disagree with findings. It found that would significantly improve the likelihood of some countries actually remaining countries instead of being covered by water, which is what those countries who requested this exploration discovered. And they found it would, prevent literally trillions of dollars in damage to coastlines and areas subject to wildfire, that we'd actually retain between 10 and 30% of our coral reefs instead of none. So there were a lot of benefits to keeping global warming at 1.5 degrees Celsius. But the challenge of doing that would be huge, that we would have to cut our carbon emissions in half by 2030 and be net zero by 2050. Independently of that, there were recent studies that have been coming out about a dramatic decline, and we're talking 80 to 95% decline in insects in different areas of the world, including pristine rainforest in Puerto Rico, where there isn't any other explanation besides climate change. And it turns out insects are have a very hard time adapting, many insects, to temperature fluctuations. They just don't lay eggs when the temperature conditions aren't right. And you might think that that's a good thing because insects are annoying. But of course, there are plants and animals that depend on them for pollination and for food. And there was a commensurate decline found in these studies in birds that eat insects, whereas birds that eat seeds apparently did not decline, which further points to climate change. And of course, we've all seen increasing wildfires, which directly affects us, and hurricane activity, which fortunately does not directly affect us, but may well be driving some population towards us. These things all came about as I also attended the ribbon cutting for the solar project in Santa Clara. Commissioner Edwards was there as well. That project will cost $64,000, a little under $64,000. Not costing Santa Clara that money because a private entity is paying that. But it is, according to their calculations, going to save between $8,000 and $10,000 a year, which makes for, you can do the math quickly, roughly an 8-year payback, maybe a 6-year payback. Really, really impressive numbers. I was quoted in the paper as saying we could do that with a couple of buildings in the county. In fact, what I had said was 20. I think the reporter may have lost a zero. I see no reason we can't scale up and do what they're doing there here and have it pay for itself. And there's an obvious connection with the first part of my commissioner comments. I think we all need to be doing a heck of a lot more to reduce the amount of carbon that's being put into the atmosphere, and this is a chance for Grant County to do that in a way that actually saves money in not very long. We should be ramping up our efforts to look at solarizing county buildings. And another item I think we should be doing is commissioning a study of what the impacts of climate change are likely to be here. I've read several similar studies done in other rural western counties, and they provide options for ways not to prevent climate change, but to mitigate the impacts of climate change on county residents. I think that's an important function of this commission, to look ahead like that. And I'm bringing that up now to tell you that I'll be bringing you more information about how we can do that and how that has been done elsewhere, what it might look like in the future. I'm happy to entertain questions if you want, but otherwise I'm done with my comments.
I know you brought up solar on all buildings. You did a study on that, correct? On feasibility?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ramos, yes, we're in the process of that. It was the energy audit. That's not complete yet. We'll be giving you a full report on that. It's not coming together as we anticipated, but that doesn't mean that we stop the project or that we stop looking at it. We just look at other developers very similar to what Santa Clara just did, but it's still in process.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Brown, I always advocated for using the land, because there's a substantial amount of land out around the detention center, to build solar and put it into the grid, rather than trying to do it building by building, because there was enough land there, I felt.
Mm-hmm. And that might be the most cost-effective way to do it. I should have said we should look at all options, and I know we've looked at some options.
The other location, we have a lot of land that is going to be very, very difficult to develop is the land above our park in Santa Clara. We have another 60 acres there.
Haven't thought about that, Paul.
So, just, I'm giving you those because I'm not going to be around.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate Manager Webb's reference to looking at other contractors. The folks who did the work at Santa Clara are very willing to give us some additional quotes.
And I do like the idea of building solar fields. And I was thinking about the idea of, well, how can we get some of that wind we're talking about? You know, if that's how it's contracted.
Yeah, the problem with electricity is it's kind of like Gabe and I getting a bucket of water, and we each fill it up over here, and then we tell you and Harry to go ahead and get you a couple of cups of water. You can't tell which one of our water you're getting. You see, it just kind of goes into a big pot, and then you start pulling it out.
It'd
So
still be nice if, as an entity, we could contract with some of that.
Yeah,
I think you can.
Scale is a big issue for wind.
But if you build your
big
own
scale, whereas solar, you can do right on
you build your own and you sell it to them, and then
That's right.
It's you may not be getting your own power, but you're getting money for power.
Well, and we know that...
And you're still green.
We know that the town of Silver City Solar District is doing amazing stuff for that. Commissioner Ross, were you finished?
Yes, I was.
Commissioner Ross?
And I was just mentioning to Commissioner Brown that I believe I ran on that the first time about getting wind turbines and what have you, but we come to find out that not every spot is great for wind in our county.
I do have the wind map, and I'll share that with you.
Yeah.
I got it from way before that. It's the only spot in our county.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
seems hard to believe
only red
sometimes.
spot.
It's all open.
You can't just make electricity in March.
That's right. That's true. At this point, I don't have anything, but thank you. Appreciate it, Madam Chair.
So I do have a couple of comments. One, I just want to congratulate HMS and all of the folks that worked on the Tucasa for the soft opening on the 15th. And just wanted to mention a little bit about a conversation that the Tucasa Advisory Board had with Dr. Nelson about opioid use in Grant County and how truly shocked he was at the level of what's happening in our county. It was significantly higher than he anticipated. He is certified to do Suboxone treatment, which is currently the most helpful treatment for opioid addicts, and it requires a significant amount of additional education to provide that treatment, and they are working very hard, so you don't have to be an MD to be certified. FNPs and PAs can also take the training, and they're working very hard on increasing the number of people in this community that can provide Suboxone treatment, and also working very hard on training people to use Narcan. The other thing I want to mention, I just want to follow up on what other folks have said about voting, but I want to specifically mention the bonds. I don't know if this is really legal for me to do this, is it? Is anybody going to... What's that?
We should be camping within 100 feet of the...
Okay. So vote.
But if I were, I'd be mentioning the bonds.
That's right. If I were, I would mention the bonds. That's exactly right.
I'd be asking you to vote yes on the bonds.
Okay, so if there is nothing further at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session in accordance with NMSA 1978-10-15-1H for discussion of County Attorney Abigail Burgess' performance evaluation according to NMSA 1978-10-15-1H2, County Manager Contract and County Attorney Contract, and for the public to know that we will come back out to the Commissioner Chambers to take any action necessary as a result of our closed executive session.
We actually have two items that follow that, so. the two contracts.
Right.
We moved them down here.
Oh, right, okay, so...
Madam Chairman, I move to go into executive session.
Second.
We're recessing to
We're recessing.
executive session.
Into executive session.
I agree.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you like to do a roll call?
Yes, Commissioners Brown, Ramos, Edwards, and Caston, are you all aware that you will be entering executive session?
Yes.
I am.
So all in favor? Okay, I hereby call the county commission back into session.
I barely heard that 3 feet away.
No, go ahead and read what we were in there for. We didn't take any.
Okay, so we were in executive session to discuss the county attorney's Abigail Burgess performance evaluation, county manager contract, county attorney contract. There was no action taken in the executive session. We will now address the two tabled items.
Not yet.
They weren't tabled, we just moved them in the agenda.
We moved them in the agenda, okay. We will now address the two items that we moved in the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I move to...
help me out.
Takes 6 years to get this good.
Okay.
So, I move to table the county manager's contract at least until the November meeting.
I second that motion.
Any discussion?
Yes, I want to tell the press why. We're not doing this for any other reason than we are short one commissioner. We feel as though employment contracts should have all 5 commissioners here so they can all 5 sign them. That way, just the way that we talked about it, and that's what we're going to do. So,
Especially a commissioner that's going to be with manager for the next...
That's right, there's one of you two.
That's a good point. You can start having meetings about us now.
Right, because for all intents and purposes. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next item.
Madam Chair, I move that we table decision on the contract with the county attorney until at least the November regular session.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I will
To adjourn.
entertain that motion.
Second.
Shall we have some discussion? Okay.
There's no discussion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.